Hey there, welcome to the Leadership Snapshot Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Sarah Andreas. My guests are everyday leaders, and in each episode, we discuss leadership experiences, lessons, and we look behind the scenes to inspire your leadership growth so that you can make an impact. So stick around. We have a lot of people to talk to. Hey everyone, welcome back. Today, my guest is Ned Parks, and Ned is the owner of Aegis 360 Consulting. And I have taken several classes with Ned, so I know exactly what you are in for today, and it is a treat. So welcome, Ned.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
No problem. So tell everybody a little bit more about what you do and how you do it.
So, Aegis 360 Consulting, we really connect leadership, culture, and strategy together. So, when we do a project for a client, we look at what's the culture, what culture do you want, where are you, where would you like to be, how does that fit in with your leadership training, with your leadership values, your statements, the things that you're actually doing, your day-to-day practices, and then how does that support this business strategy? So are you selling to this market or that market? Because they're all intertwined. And what a lot of people do, Sarah, is look at one of these independent of the other two, and that usually still has some impact, some positive impact, but we like to make sure that things are connected all the way through. Been in business 19 years and love it.
Awesome. So did you start out in this business, or how did you start?
Oh my gosh. So a crooked road, but it wasn't filled with the criminal justice system, a different kind of crooked. I actually started off my professional working career as an adult as a policeman. And then I went into the Army as a helicopter pilot. And that's really where I got invested into training, because after my first duty assignment, they sent me back to the aviation school and made me a flight instructor and a classroom instructor. And I fell in love with the front of the room and working with groups and facilitation and teaching. And then, of course, flight instruction is kind of like one-on-one coaching, because you're one-on-one with your student. And then came out of the military and went to work and owned several of my own aviation businesses, went to work for a manufacturing company. And then in 2000, I opened this consulting practice and never looked back.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So the question that I ask all my guests is, what was your hardest or biggest leadership lesson that you personally had to learn?
Well, I'll tell you exactly what it was. I had my aviation business. We provided aircraft services to large corporations and private owners. So they would fly into an airport. We were like a private terminal. We'd sell them fuel and all this sort of thing. And I had a guy working for me that was really pivotal and really integral to the success of the organization. He fell into the A-list category employee. And he came to me one day and he said, hey, the guy across the other side of the airfield, our competitor, has offered me $1 an hour more. And Sarah, I panicked. And I said, I'll not only match it, but I'll beat it. I mean, this was a conversation that all took place, Sarah, in maybe 45 seconds.
Mm.
I fired him 30 days later.
What?
Yep. What I learned quickly was the minute you do that, the second you do that on a one-on-one basis, the tail now wags the dog. I had given up all leadership of the organization to $1 an hour is what I had done. I had miscalculated a couple of things. The first thing is that it wasn't as, $1 an hour was important based upon what I paid him. It was probably about, at the time, this was 25, almost 30 years ago. It probably was well over 20% of his salary. So it wasn't like it was an insignificant number, okay? It made up a pretty good chunk to him. But what happened to him is he then figured, well, okay, I'm that important, and if I'm that important, I can do whatever I want. And I don't think it was his intent by any stretch of imagination, but his performance completely crashed. And it's interesting because he and I are friends today. And we've actually had an opportunity to talk about it. And he said he's never said that he lost respect for me, which I thought was interesting, because I probably would have lost respect for me had I been in his shoes. But He's never said that, but he just said he just felt like, yeah, he was important, but he could just do whatever he wanted, and he did. And his performance got so bad that I had other employees coming up saying he's got to go. He was no longer the leader that he was. He lost his leadership, and he had been a significant leader in the organization. So I guess the leadership lesson is, when you feel panic, don't make any decision unless your hair's on fire, right? I mean, I'm not talking about the panic of the building is literally on fire or you're about to crash. I'm not talking about those things. I'm talking about management decisions. There probably isn't anything out there that we can't give it 12 hours at a minimum and talk to one person to make a decision. And as a result, now I've run a lot of groups, and there's an exercise that I run with people, and I ask them to timeline their life from the time they're 16 until current. And so I have people all over the room, and they're on the floor drawing out these long timelines. I have them do it with pencils and crayons and markers, and it's very artistic in nature. And some are on the wall with butcher paper, and they've got music going. And then they timeline it, and then each marker on the timeline is mistakes that they've made. Now, I will tell you, clients generally say, it's kind of like having a personal, a personal trainer. You hire them to make your body better, and then you hate them during the process, right? So I've had clients literally drop the F-bomb on me and tell me how much they hate me for this exercise. It's like, I got to write down all my screw-ups. Yep, every last one of them. So find these out. That's really not the lesson. The lesson then is they go back and they put a mark or circle all the decisions that they made in a vacuum. So how many did you make without conferring with anyone, and or only those who agree with you? And I will tell you, I've probably done this 30 times with hundreds of people by now. And I will tell you that it's around 90% of your screw-ups or things that you determine was a mistake in your life. I don't tell them what the mistake is. They're the ones that write it down, right? Some are big, some are small. The college I decided to go to, or the person I decided to marry, or the house I decided to buy, or whatever, right? And they find that about 90% were done in a vacuum. And that's the decision I made. I made this decision in a vacuum. I didn't stop and go, gee, I need to talk to somebody, a coach, a mentor, a friend, a spouse, the guy at the bar down the street. I kind of don't care. I got this tossed in my face today. What do I do with it? I really want to keep this guy. I want to make sure he continues to work here. I don't want to lose him to the competition. There's a consequence for either decision, but I didn't do that. I made the decision in a vacuum, and it bit me right in the butt. So I guess the biggest leadership lesson is have good counsel. And it doesn't have to be paid counsel. It doesn't have to be expert counsel. I mean, for some things it does, right? I mean, I want paid legal counsel. I want paid accounting counsel, right? I want paid counsel for, other IT and other sorts of technical areas. But there needs to be that person, and whether they're paid or not, I really don't care. There needs to be that person I just pick up the phone and say, all right, I got this tossed in my lap today, and I'm really not sure what to do with it. And so I would tell people, that is and I tell the story to everybody that'll listen, and make sure it's somebody who will challenge you and look at you and go, are you out of your mind? Now, here's the thing. You may go forward with your original decision, right? I might have gone forward and given him the raise. I might have made that decision. Maybe my counsel would have agreed with me and we both would have been wrong. But at least I had the benefit of thinking it through with someone else.
Yeah. There's an African proverb that I quote all the time, and it's, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what you're telling people is, hey, you need other people's advice.
Right.
So that leads me into my next question, which may be the same answer, but what advice would you give to someone who is an emerging leader, an aspiring leader, and they want to someday be the CEO, but they're just starting out and they're not sure what they should even be working on?
So I will tell you that across the board, without fail, and I don't care what your personality style is, although there's one that struggles with it more than others, but it doesn't matter. that the one single item I have found that leaders struggle with the most is delegation. Bar none. Absolutely bar none. There's not one other that I'll put above it. Now, there's others that are a comfortable second, but not a close second. They're comfortable. They're there. I mean, I would say that the old-fashioned time management thing is way up there. It's certainly in the top 3, but it is not above delegation. It is the one thing that people struggle with the most. And I will tell you, you need to get really good at it really fast. There is a great article in the archives at the Harvard Business Review that is probably one of the best I've ever read out of there. And I believe the title of the article is "You May Be the Bottleneck to Your Organization." And of course, when they do articles, they're 40 pages long, and I mean they're an in-depth read. And they always have a real life case study that they frame everything around. The case study they use is a company, and it had really topped out. They were very successful. People liked working there for the most part. All those sorts of things were in play, but their sales had just completely flatlined. And they knew there was, the strategy was right. They knew there was a lot more market out there, but they weren't getting it. And as they really began to look at their operations, they found that the 2 owners had to approve every single solitary proposal, no matter how much it was for, along with some other things. And what they went back and said was, this organization will not grow because you have necked it down and made it so tight to move that you can't grow. You cannot accept any more money due to your own self-imposed limitations of capacity. And once they started to push decision-making downhill and rapidly, their growth over the next 2 years was like a hockey stick. It just exploded. And what they also found out was that was causing them to be unresponsive to their customers. So and here's the thing, Sarah, these 2 guys and many clients I've had do it. Unfortunately, this is the danger of it. They do much of it for the right reason, but the wrong outcome. They go, I want to make sure the quality's there. That's the right reason, right? It's hard to argue with, right? I want to make sure the quality, I want to make sure our values are intact. I want to make sure that we're profitable on every deal. I get it. I mean, I understand what they're trying to accomplish, but they have to understand that there is a capacity limitation to what the organization can do. It's interesting. I work with a hospital of about 5,000 people, and I've worked for them for years and years now. And I always refer to the CEO, and everybody knows him in the hospital. I go, if he made all of your decisions, how much would get done in this organization? And the room falls silent, and they all say, not much. I go, that's right, not much. Not only is he not qualified to make the decisions for the radiology tech and the surgeons and this person and that person, the bandwidth is physically not there. And the only downside to that example is it's easy to understand when you're at the top of a 5,000-foot heap of people. The problem I find is entrepreneurs and smaller businesses that are at the top of a 15, 20, or 30-person heap, and many of them have grown out of the organization. They were a great engineer and they got an engineering company. They were a great machinist and they have a machine shop. They were, whatever it was they were, and the danger to them is they literally technically can perform the functions because they built every one. And so since they can, they do. And what I like, and in the case of my CEO friend at the hospital, he can't, so he doesn't, right? So one of the things I'm always, it's a huge argument in the world of leadership. Do you have to know the function in order to lead the function? And I argue no. In fact, I will tell you some of the best leaders of functions are people who cannot do the function. And boy, you want to spark off a debate, just lay that one on the bar tab on a Friday night and you'll have 30 people wanting to strangle you.
Right.
You cannot manage me as a mechanic in the car shop if you're not a mechanic yourself. And I will raise the massive red BS flag on that. In fact, I think I can do better because I know I can't do your job. And so I don't pretend like I'm going to do your job, or because I can't. If you tell me this is the part from the inside of the transmission, all I can do is go, okay, I got to believe you. I don't have any choice.
Mm-hmm.
That is the one thing I will tell you. If you want to grow up in the leadership and management world, if you're not hiring competent people and handing them jobs to do, then you will not grow. And more detrimental to you, you're only one career that's going to go in the toilet. The problem is, the moment I step into a role where I'm leading others, before that, as an individual contributor, I have stewardship of company money of my salary times 1. I have to make sure I return back to the company my $50,000 plus a little bit more in value that I bring back to them.
Mm-hmm.
The minute you come to work for me, I now have mine plus yours. I'm now responsible. Let's say I have somebody that works for me for $25,000. I'm not responsible for $75,000 of payroll that it produces what the company is giving it, and then some, because there has to be a profit of productivity. And so if I have 10 people working for me, now I'm in charge of, I don't know, $500,000 worth of payroll. And I can't do it all. If I could, why in the hell did the company hire me people to work for me? That to me is the biggest single item of if you want to grow up, learn how to delegate. For some people, it's really, really difficult. Really difficult.
Yeah, well, ego gets involved. You always think, hey, I can do it better.
Well, so I love to run a delegation class, and here's how I run it. I have them brainstorm all the reasons they don't delegate. And we put them in flip charts all over the room. It's so much fun because they have all these really lame and I tell them, I go, okay, these are all, and they've worked really hard. I mean, these are really good reasons why, because they can't do it as good, and they're serious about it. And I go, these are some of the best lame excuses I've ever seen in my life. And people are just like, what the hell are you talking about? They're not lame excuses. And I like to point out the obvious. And I love the one where they can't do it as well as I do it. And I say, I said, the danger to that reason is it's accurate. This person who's never done that task, they probably can't do it as well as you do it. And then I point this out. However, when you first got the task, you didn't do it as well as you do it now, number one. The person that gave it to you probably could do it better than you could do it when they first gave it to you. But the number one priority of a leader is the development of other people. Yeah. And so if I don't give you that task and let you learn and grow, how are you ever going to be developed? Well, you're not. And B, I can't do everything. So I've got to get away from things. So the one big takeaway for all of your listeners, if they'll please take a nice Post-it note and write in capital letters, H.A.B.U, H-A.B.U. And that stands for, and put it on their monitor. I want it in front of them so it reminds them every single day. And here's what it is. What is the highest and best use of my time?
Wow.
H-A.B.U, the highest and best use of my time. The highest and best use of my time may very well not be ordering office supplies, even though I seem to get stuck doing it. And it's a job for someone else. I'm going to hand it to someone else and say, order the office supplies. You're now in charge of the office supplies, period. Here's some ramifications, or not some ramifications, but here's some guidelines, but you're now in charge. It's no longer something I don't even want to think about it any longer. And I like to have people really think it through. What were you hired to do? You're the steward of your paycheck. And I hired you to be the manager of the department, and yet on a time study, I find out you're going to spend 40 hours at the copy machine this year, but you have an administrative assistant that works for half your salary. That is not the highest and best use of your time. Mm. And people fool themselves into, well, I don't want to ask them to do menial tasks, or I don't want to ask anybody to do anything I wouldn't do, or, and these are all admirable things. That's what makes them so dangerous, is they are admirable. They're just really misguided. They're really misguided.
Yeah. Ned, thank you so much. I love talking to you today.
Oh man, this was fun. I appreciate it. I'm honored to be on, and I appreciate it. And good luck with all of your podcasts and all of your work.
Thank you. If you enjoyed this podcast, make sure you subscribe so that way you can hear new podcasts that come out every week. Embrace your journey, and we'll talk to you next week.